Uh, Hello, good morning everyone. We are just beginning in a few minutes. We're just waiting for more participants to join. Hello, Mr. Gaurav. Welcome to the session. Uh, Sir, we will be starting in some minutes because we are waiting for the participants to join.
Yes,
So we
yes,
will start in some time. Okay, thank you, sir.
yes, absolutely.
Uh, Very good morning to all the participants. And our principal ma'am has joined now, so we'll start the session. The Institute Innovation Council and the IQAD of our college has organized this motivational session, My Story, Life of an Entrepreneur, to motivate our students to become successful entrepreneurs in future. Our resource person for the event is Mr. Gaurav Somvanshi, who is the co-founder and the resource person who is the co-founder of Emertech Innovations. I'm sure he will motivate our students to become the successful entrepreneurs. This session will mainly focus on critical thinking and risk-taking opportunities for the students. Now, I request our respected principal madam and IIC president, Professor Punikala Samant, to officially address the gathering. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, Pooja. Hello, and I
Yes, ma'am.
welcome to the first
We can
event
hear.
of
Yes.
this. Yes, okay, first event of this IIC for this year. My story, my entrepreneurship should be motivating for the young students to become entrepreneurs. I welcome Gaurav here for taking initiative and to have interaction with our students, young students, how they should move in their life by motivating his inspirational stories to become entrepreneurs. I welcome to this government college on this webinar platform. And I am thankful to all the students who have joined this webinar. I hope they will take good inspiration from them. And once they are graduates from our college, certainly they will be good entrepreneurs for good career in their life. So I'm thankful to Ms. Pooja, who is a convener of IIC, our Devanand Vekar, coordinator of IIC, the student ambassador, Mr. Myrin Pereira, and Asavari Naik, the service, social media convener of our college. I welcome one and all for your dedicated efforts and wish a very good day and a fruitful interaction of Mr. Gaurav with our students. Over to Pooja and welcome Gaurav once again. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, I request Ms. Asavari Naik to introduce our resource person to all the participants.
Um, a very good morning to one and all. It's my honor and privilege to introduce today's guest speaker, Mr. Gaurav Somvanshi. He is the CEO and founder of Emotech Innovations Private Limited, which is a Mumbai-based organization which is using emerging blockchain and IoT technologies to improve the quality of human lives and also to create a systemic social impact in sectors like agriculture, healthcare, disaster management, and financial inclusion. He holds a BE degree from Government Engineering College, Aurangabad, and a postgraduate diploma in management from Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow. Mr. Gaurav's organization has also won national and international acclaim. For example, his startup project of helping over 8,000 farmers by onboarding them on AgroTrust platform has won the first prize at Switzerland-based academic industry training competition. They have also received an acclaim at the central government's grant traceability challenge and has received an incubation at Science Center at Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. They have also won awards at the Inspiring Futures platform at Dubai, where over 200 startups from over 12 countries were present and have also received support from Tata's Digital Impact Square Foundation. Mr. Gaurav is also the associate editor of Frontiers in Blockchain, which is a Switzerland based open access access journal, and also heads the section on blockchain and social and economic equity in this journal. And he also heads the India chapter of blockchain in healthcare today, which is again a USA based open access journal. Apart from all these achievements, Mr. Gaurav is also a social activist. He's an author, he's a researcher, and he works very actively on several social justice issues. So it is really our privilege and honor to have you here with us, sir. And we are very confident that your journey to be becoming an entrepreneur, the different challenges that you had to go through, or your story as a whole would be very inspiring for our students and also our other listeners here today. And we are very, very, immensely grateful that you accepted our invite to be a speaker for today's event. And I extend a very warm welcome to you once again. Yeah, so you can begin the session. And
Thank you.
just sorry, just an announcement for students. E-certificates will be provided to you at the end of the session. We will be circulating a feedback form link. So upon filling that, we will email you the certificates. Thank you so much. Yes, you can begin, Mr. Gaurav.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity because the chance to share whatever your troubles or little achievements that I've been through, it helps me a lot also to give a narrative to my life. And it's not that I have arrived at a stage when I can say that yes, I'm successful, but yes, I can actually say there have been some difficulties in the entrepreneurial journey, and some lessons will be common, which I think it's better to be shared earlier rather than, because it's not necessary that everyone has to learn from the same mistakes again and again. So sometimes you can learn the mistakes of others and also take some little cues. That's all that this is. I'm just sharing a personal story and a personal journey. I'll be taking help of slides as well. So, with your permission, I think I'll just share slides. But it's not a lecture or any session. Mostly, they will have photographs so that I can explain how the entire journey has been. I'm just sharing the slides. Just a second. Let me know whenever they're visible. Are the slides visible?
Yes, yes.
Is the screen visible? Okay. So I'll spend some little time to talk about the entire journey, and then I will go into the details of how I actually went about learning and failing and achieving, and then circle continues endlessly in this entrepreneurial road. So everything has its beginning in my graduation, 2007 to 11. But while I was doing my graduation, and I would encourage all of you to make really great friends, and don't because the way it should work is you should find the right people to do things, and it's not exactly the thing that you need a right idea to work upon, because ideas are replaceable and but people are not. In fact, that's how it is, the best way it is, because whenever even an investor is looking to invest in your startup, the feeling of the team camaraderie, how much gelling that there is, because the investor also knows that the idea may fail, that the idea can simply tank out. But even if that happens, the team, if it is strong, it will simply pivot or shift to a new idea, and that's how the startup will survive. Because it will never be the case that you have one idea in mind and then you start thinking that this is how I'm going to go ahead and begin implementing things, because that's never the case. So I'll just talk about the graduation part. So that's where I met some really good set of friends, and after 13 years we are now even working together. So that should be a dream for most of you. That not a dream but a vision, that the right people you find in life, you also find a way to work with them. Immediately after engineering, though, I went to do complete my management from IIM Lucknow. And please notice that it is IIM and not IIE. So I don't do as much as entrepreneurship over there. It's more about how you become high level managers, corporate jobs, and everything. and that also creates a misconception. If you think that doing an MBA will make you an entrepreneur, it simply will. I'll tell you why also. While doing my post graduation in management, there are again some learnings. It is that the entrepreneurial journey is a very vastly different one than one which is about how do you make your resumes look neat and clean and apply for a corporate job, you negotiate salaries. That's a different life. It's a great life, but it's a different life, and it should not with the fact that just because you are getting, let's say, X amount of package into your uh, corporate job, that is also the amount of salary or revenue you should expect from your startup. So the sense of entitlement should not be there. So many times you will find that most of the entrepreneurs who are doing
Students, the resource person has got disconnected, maybe due to some network issue. Kindly stay, join. He'll be online after in some time. Okay, we have just informed him. He'll be online. Okay, please stay tuned.
hello, I'm sorry, I got disconnected. If you can, there's a network issue. If you can just tell me at what point I lost connection because I kept on talking, that would be great. Sorry, can you just let me know at what point I lost connection? What I was saying.
I think soon after the first slide, the second slide we couldn't hear. Or were you on?
Okay. Okay. No, I was just
Hello?
yeah. I'm still
Hello.
on the first slide only.
Yeah, yeah,
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, you were talking about the corporate salary and the uh, startup
Yeah.
thing. From there, they
So
got disconnected.
the okay.
Yeah.
So the point that I was trying to make is that it is a respectable and great life to look after corporate jobs, but the thing is, one should not confuse management with entrepreneurship. You should never confuse a job with a startup or a business, because that's where the whole problem lies. Because what mostly happens is that our degrees sometimes give us the illusion that now we are ready to tackle on things, or that we are entitled to success, that we will, it doesn't matter how other people are facing their obstacles and troubles, because we have degrees, maybe we will have a easier way out of it. So that is a kind of a really bad delusion that one has to go through, and I'll talk about that as well. So I decided not to join a corporate job, and let's just uh, I told myself that let me just explore what is it that I can do on my own. So I began an NGO in 2013. The name of the NGO was Saganites Science Education Association. It was after the American astronomer Carl Sagan, and I felt that because I love his books and the way that he popularizes science, maybe if there is an NGO that can actually also go into that mode, it would be helpful. Now that NGO started to do a little bit well, we started to connect to different students from marginalized backgrounds. So the whole idea was to take complex but really wonderful subjects like evolution, astronomy, and astrophysics, and then make them simpler and deliver it to the students. But while doing so, also have some kind of a model in which to one can make it sustainable. Now, then what happened was, after a while, my classmates who had then joined very large corporates back in 2013 itself. So my classmates from IIM, not my classmates from engineering. So they were working in big companies like Amazon, Flipkart, Microsoft, and they just had some round of discussions, and they said, what if we convert the idea of an NGO, the work that whatever is we are doing, and convert it into a startup. A startup is basically a private limited for profit company where you will look for a revenue model, and it doesn't matter whether you're looking for social entrepreneurship or commercial entrepreneurship, but it will have its own funding structure, revenue structure. So then you could say five of the toppers of IIM Lucknow came together, and we started testing out that how what it is that we can do. And now I'll talk about some failures. I will share that now with you. So the first failure was, so we first moved to Bangalore, saying that startup is something that everyone does in Bangalore, and so why not just go there and start working. So that was the first misconception, that the location that we chose came because of just a popular trend. The second was, so now we were trying to build educational software for schools, and educational software for schools was being simply built based around the idea that they are going to use AI to sorry, I think I realized I lost the connection again for a while. uh, there's been some bandwidth issues. Yeah, I hope I'm audible again.
Yes, yes. Um, Mr. Gaurav, I think we lost you again. You're not audible.
Sorry again, I'm losing my connection. But am I audible now? Should be
Yes,
better
yes,
now.
you
I
are.
just
Yes,
changed.
yes.
It's better right now, right? Okay. I'll just share my slide again. So yes, sorry. The whole thing was, now I'm just talking about the failures part. Now the idea was, can we just build something on our own, because there's an idea that some software is needed, and that software is definitely something that will work out. So there was no proper market research. It was just that we will do something, show a little bit of traction by selling it to a couple of schools, or just not even selling it, deploying it for free. And now the other, you could say, trap of startups comes into the picture. If I just share my screen again. think that it's all about raising fundings, because the bad part about being attracted to the startup life is that sometimes, instead of looking at how we are creating value, we are more and more attracted to news like how much funding is raised and how many funding rounds, 200 million, 500 million, and then whatever now Shark Tank is making it popular. But the entire thing should be that, are we really creating value? Because unless some value is created, it is only out of that shared portion of value that something new is going to happen, that you are going to get your own revenue. And the idea that we will show that if we are working with, for example, something works in 5 schools, and then we go to an investor and they say that now we want to work in 500 schools. For that we will need, let's say, 10 crore rupees of money. You take 20% of our equity, and then let's start working together. That is a kind of a dreamy state. And there was a time when there was a very the entire market was under the delusion that let us now start pumping money into certain sectors. So back then everyone was pumping money into the education sector. Today now they are pumping money into crypto, blockchain, or even the agri-tech sector. So just because some investors are attracted from time to time to certain domains, doesn't mean that that should be, yeah, that should make you attracted to any domain. So that was the second mistake, that the domain itself was chosen not because there was prior work in it. The domain was chosen because you could say that it was hot, that there was a lot of investors interest over there. The third mistake that we did over then was to talk very little as possible, to network as little as possible, just to focus on the product, build it, and then after a few months we simply go to schools and say that this is something that we feel that you need, so why not take it from us? And that is where the sense of entitlement also comes from, which is that you build something in isolation, thinking that if it is built beautifully or according to your understanding, it will actually work out. But reality taught us something else, that it simply doesn't work that way. Because although we were able to scale in 18 schools, but the revenue generation was absolutely very minimal, just owing to the fact that we never even thought that just because something is needed, is it needed enough that someone would pay for it. And the level of requirements, for example, every school was asking some different requirements. So the amount of work that was going into just uh, tailor making our suits to fit different you could say different organizations, that effort was just going too much. So there was no balance in the way that we were working. And after a couple of years, all of us realized that this is not the way that we are going to become instant shortcut millionaires by raising fundings, because that is never how it works. If you actually even raise funding, you become liable to the investors. So the more and more amount of equity you gave away, the more and more you become an employee of the investor, and less of an entrepreneur with your own freedoms, that you could say. Yeah. Now, because things didn't work out, there was also something that I was trying to avoid since 4 or 5 years, which is a corporate job. That is something I simply had to do, because some of my own money went into the startup, some of my own time, and I felt that maybe I should have some level of stability, is the wrong word, but you could say some level of anchoring and some financial security, which will help me to again gain back my confidence. So then I went back to my corporate job. But this time, when I went to a job, it was with an outlook that I am going to never repeat my mistakes, which I did in the startup. And although it is a job, I am going to treat it like I'm running my own business. That I will try to do things which are not given in my job description. I will try to create value which is not even asked from me, and I will try to bring something new to the table, which is simply something that maybe after a few years should help me to go back into the startup mode again. And this is where things started slowly changing. So my corporate job began when I was working as a senior consultant for PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. They're called one of the big four, along with EY, KPMG, and Deloitte. The reason that they're called that is because they are the largest consulting firms, having clientele all over the world, mostly in the governments. So in this case, it was the PwC was the consultant to the government of Chhattisgarh. Now, what was my task? So my task, and over there, one very critical person in my life was the client, who is now a very close friend, Mr. Alex Paul Menon, who is currently the secretary of the labor department. Back then, when we were working together, he was secretary of the IT department. And Mr. Alex Paul Menon, more than being you could say client, he just said that it was more as a team leader. So although he was an IS officer and he was supposed to be a client, he made a small kind of a personal team by hiring consultants from the private sector so that they could do this job. So the job was, at the face of it, very straightforward. So there were many government schemes back then which were disbursed in cash. So cash was the mode of transaction. It could be scholarship, free ship, widow pension, soldier pension, PDS. Many of these things happen only with cash. Can we convert all of these cash schemes into DBT schemes? DBT simply means direct benefit transfer. So direct benefit transfer means when a benefit reaches to you, bypassing all of the clerical works, no cash, and directly into your account. Or if there is in kind support, for example, the PDS schemes, in that case also they will be delivered right at your doorstep or right to your Aadhaar ID. The reason for doing this is because there is a lot of leakage and corruption that can happen whenever cash is involved, and we'll talk about that also. So the first task was to find out which out of those 46 departments have the certain schemes which can be converted into DBT. Now that required going to all of these 26 department secretaries, meeting the IS officers, everyone from IS officers till the clerk, understanding the schemes, and then mapping out which can be digitized. Now, while I was doing this in January, in my first month of job itself, in January 2017, I was also randomly reading about how maybe Bitcoin works, and that this is just because I love reading. It's a wrong thing to say I love reading. It's just I love trying to learn new things, because now you can learn more from YouTube and Google and find valuable information than 10 books combined. So you should not restrict yourself to saying that I love reading books, or this is only I love watching videos. It should be just that I love knowing things, because the mode of knowing will keep on changing depending upon what is in trend. But books, of course, is something that has another meditative value. It helps you to anchor. So I will again suggest that. So while doing my job, as I said, I was also learning how Bitcoin and blockchain works. I had an idea that what if we start using blockchain technology upon which Bitcoin is built, but not for any cryptocurrency part, but just to connect the different department databases. To put it simply, blockchain is just a type of database in which you have trust. Why there is trust? You don't trust the people who are coding it, you don't trust the people who are sponsoring it, you trust the data structure, because it gives you the promise that whatever information you are seeing through a blockchain, that is something everyone is seeing at the same time, and once information goes into a blockchain, it becomes nearly unhackable. Now this property of distributed trust, having a single source of truth, actually gives you an idea, or it actually helps you to build systems where even strangers can interact with each other with trust. Now, the question was, I went back, there was a flashback moment, that how should I actually approach this? Should I go back and just like I did in the startup, to code things in isolation, to start again thinking that how something will work without reaching out to the uh, other people, or should I do the exactly the reverse? So that's where now I want to talk about what is the power of networking, and how networking helped me to do entrepreneurial kind of tasks within my corporate job, based on which today I was able to thankfully leave the corporate job and begin a startup. So this is the story of very short story about the networking part. So as I said, the task that I faced in front of me was how to introduce a technology which no one had even heard back then in 2017, especially in Chhattisgarh, and convince people to do this while also doing my regular job work. So as I said, the entire idea was how can I actually go ahead
Mr. Gaurav, I think we
चालेल, थँक्यू थँक्यू. मी कॉलवर आहे का ना? नाही, तुम्हाला बोलतो मी एका मीटिंगमध्ये आहे.
we can hear you now.
And sorry, I'm audible now. I'm losing connection because of some reason.
Yes, yes.
Sorry about that. So now the task was, when I introduce and technology to a state, do something that is not a part of my description, and something that even I was completely new about, which had, and there were no simply resources to learn blockchain from. So that's when I started reaching out to people, and this is where LinkedIn comes into the picture, because LinkedIn is not just for me a professional networking kind of site. LinkedIn for me became a way to create my own personal teams by just finding the like-minded people. So what I did was, back then I had around 100 200 friends connections. Today I have more than 18,000, because I started adding all the people working in technology space, especially in blockchain, all over the world, and just dropping messages like this. So over here, you could see that I dropped a message to Dr. Jane Thompson on 6 September 2017. And it was simply a message that I would like to connect to you regarding few projects, because I found out that Jane was writing a lot upon how blockchain can impact digital transformations. And so I said, why not just drop messages? Now, I was not just, you could, spamming is a bad word because spamming means copy pasting. I was actually understanding the people's profiles and then writing specific messages. Out of 100, 10 will respond and one will remain with you for the long journey. But that is the issue in any case, whether you're doing sales or whether you're doing any kind of marketing strategies. And in order to get one, you have to attempt 100. That is the ratio that we also learn in real life. So what happened that then Dr. Jain became one of the many networks built through LinkedIn. So we shared our personal contacts. She was the CEO at that time of a multimillionaire Australian company working in real estate. And then the entire focus shifted upon how whatever work I'm doing and how she can support. So during one of those late night video calls, she just said that, Gaurav, how are things over there? I said that I'm finding it really difficult to convince people that they should go ahead with the blockchain pilots with the startup, with the kind of ideas that I'm having. So she said, what if I come over to Chhattisgarh and I start giving presentations on your behalf? I said, I can't even pay for your cab expense if you're here. But she said, no, let me come over there, because my company will fund my entire travel, so don't worry about that. Even though my company doesn't work in IT at all. So the next month itself, she came all the way from Australia to Chhattisgarh to give presentations. So these are the photos clicked in Raipur. And now today she's a mentor at my startup as well. Next month she'll be coming over to meet us in Mumbai. We also met in Dubai 3 months ago. So she's now a kind of a long-term mentor that I've developed. Similarly, now I needed guidance to find a way where I could infuse technology into a task that I was given. So the task was simple: how to write the guidelines and policies for the state, especially when it comes to technology. And I wanted to make it as robust as possible. So I reached out to the authors of the research papers that I was reading, simply by dropping the messages that I'm working in a certain sector and I've read your research papers, like just like you're reading right now, Professor Edgar Whitley. And then he helped me to make very extremely robust policies, to write really great documents and SOPs. which would simply not be possible without the help that he was just giving, just as a friend over emails for more than a year. And then later, when I was invited to London, when all of this was successful, I dropped him a message that, uh, can we catch up for a coffee or something? He said, why don't you come over to London School of Economics and deliver an entire workshop regarding how blockchain was first introduced in a state which is considered to be the last among the technically advanced states across India. Similarly, India's first ever hackathon on blockchain technology, sponsored by a government, happened in Chhattisgarh. It was not one of those advanced states, digitally advanced states, but only Chhattisgarh, because we took up that initiative. Then how do we invite people? So because it was a hackathon, we I just dropped messages to the winner of the hackathon of the first ever global hackathon. So Johnny was the winner. In fact, she won $2 million in cash, and I invited her over to be an online jury at the competition. She said, why online jury? I'll just come over there personally. So all of these networks were getting created, and I was learning a lot. And all of this was not a part of my job description. My daily job of 9 to 9 was already, uh, morning 9 to evening 9, you could say, was already pretty much. But while doing all of that, there was a constant awareness that I'm going to use my insights, my experiences, my networks to have my own startup maybe sometime in the future. But I had no idea in which domain I would be working. Absolutely no idea. But just I felt maybe this is a good way to begin things, right? Similarly, I wanted to conduct blockchain land records, blockchain for land records. I reached out to a person in US, and today Larry and me are again great friends. We did work together. Now the next idea was, we actually found out a way in which blockchain was actually working. So with the help of a few, you could say, some of the pilots that we did, we were able to crisscross databases. Now, what is that we actually tangibly achieved? The thing that we tangibly achieved, first and foremost, was the fact that so there are 2.6 crore citizens in Chhattisgarh. Out of those 2.6 crores, 1.6 crore citizens are beneficiaries of either one of the other schemes. And because of that, there is also a liability, there is also a factor where uh, there could be a case where there would be simply fake accounts into picture. Fake accounts means that your name is real, but your bank account is someone else's. And when we were doing these pilots, when we were doing this crisscrossing of databases, we found out that out of those 1.6 crore citizens data, 84 lakh were fake accounts. And immediately by stopping them, we were able to record a saving of more than 698 crores within a single month. So that is what we actually achieved. And immediately then there was a lot of recognition, there was a lot of noise, and there was an immediate a sense of achievement among all. Just give me a second. Yeah, sorry for that. So immediately what we were able to achieve was 698 crores of savings for the state. Now the next task was, how do we go ahead and convert it into a full statewide, full blown project? And that's when the question that was there in front of us was, how do we gather funds? And we had made an estimate, and we realized that we need around 230 crores in order to have a 5-year project into a new technology. So out of those 230 crores, 170 crores was allocated for a one-time survey to clean the data, 60 crores for 5 years of software development and maintenance of managers. But then again, that's a big amount. So what we did, so again, while representing government of Chhattisgarh, we reached out to different funding agencies like World Bank, UN, IMF, and then World Bank actually got interested. And the moment World Bank got interested, they came into the picture, and the World Bank approved that. So even their networking played a critical and vital role. And so I was heading that World Bank project. Now this kind of gave a lot of recognition, and I'll talk about that. So this is an appreciation letter from the government of Chhattisgarh, certifying that some of the first pilots that we did is how we began doing things. I was invited to the UK Prime Minister's residence to spend an entire day over there. A small part of my work is covered on by British Council, just on YouTube. And I was also invited to give presentations in UK Parliament, in the House of Lords and the House of Commons. After that, these are some of the clips where the ministers are tweeting about me. I was also invited to Cambridge to conduct a session. And then now I was doing things in a reverse way. I was trying to reach out to in as much way as possible by writing in local newspapers, in especially in Marathi newspapers. So I wrote an entire year, 52 articles explaining blockchain right from beginning, from 5,000-year-old history of how money was printed right until now. Because you sometimes you have to create a demand just by creating an awareness. Because if this whatever you're doing is something that has not happened before, it's your job to create that awareness and not just expect that because you're doing something good, people will come to you on their own. This also got so doing workshops all over India while I was doing all of my job also got me recognition as one of the Dalai Lama fellows. So I'm one of the three Indians who's a Dalai Lama fellow, and there was a year-long training under Dalai Lama regarding how ethical leadership should look like. And these were the different places where actually I conducted workshops in Europe, in Switzerland, in the US as well, but mostly around anywhere that I was invited, because I wanted this time to do things in reverse. I did not want to devise a solution and then thrust it upon the public. I wanted to tell different domain experts how blockchain works and let them tell me how blockchain can transform their domain. Because the idea that you can become a domain expert, that is when things start going south. That is when things actually go wrong. Right? So while doing one of these workshops, and I'll talk about that, that is how the startup in fact began. So just some clips from the different workshops. On the left hand side, these are the IS officers of the Delhi government when they were trying to figure out how to have a crypto policy. On the right hand side, I'm teaching in US. So this is also a podcast regarding that the work we're doing in blockchain in agriculture. I'll share it with Ms. Asavari later on. Now, how this led to the startup. So the name of my startup is Emertech Innovations. It stands for Emerging Technologies. And why did I leave my job in which I was heading a 230 crores funds of World Bank project? Because the project was already successful in a way that now all that was left was implementation. And thankfully, out of pure luck, when I was invited to do a small workshop in Santa Cruz through an NGO for students who had no educational background but they had made some innovations. Over there, when delivering all of these talks, there were some farmers from Nashik who were there. Now, these farmers from Nashik just came to Mumbai, and it was a complete coincidence. And they said, "Why don't you come to Nashik and give a presentation?" And then I said, "Okay, sure." Now, now I was there in Nashik for 2 days, and we spoke extensively on how Bitcoin blockchain works. We did not tell them how it can work in agriculture because that would be too much presumptuous of us. And then the leader of the farmer collective. So India's largest collective of fruits and vegetable farmers is Sayadri Farms in Nashik. That's where we were. If you've ever tasted Kisan ketchup, your ketchup is made by Sayadri Farms by HUL. So HUL is just the you could say the brand, but the manufacturer is Sayadri Farms. They are India's largest exporter of grapes. More than 15,000 farmers have come together. So when I visited that place and I realized that now 15,000 farmers are coming together and doing entrepreneurship without any educational background, having turnover of nearly 1,000 crores, that was itself very, you could say, shocking, because inspiring comes later. But when I met Mr. Vilas Shinde sir, and then he understood what blockchain is, it was he who told me, Gaurav, what if we use blockchain in such and such manner in so and so domain? How would it lead to a change? So that was the question that I was asked. That is this something that you would be interested to work in? Immediately after going back to my job, within a couple of days, after a lot of thinking, but things were very clear to me that this is the opportunity that I've been waiting for. Now I have a technology and I have a help from a domain expert, and I'm not going to do things in isolation. I will have the farmer leaders guiding me whenever I'm devising a solution. So I left my job and simply registered a startup. And it becomes a very critical decision because salary is the most addictive thing in the world. It's in a good way also, because without that, how will you sustain? but addictive in the sense that it will stop you from pursuing an idea to which only you could do justice. So that's where it becomes a very difficult decision. And sometimes it's also a matter of privilege regarding how much you really have a freedom, how many people are dependent on you. And at that time I had considerable amount of privilege also, in which I could feel that if I don't take a risk now, then simply I won't be able to do it later, and it was making some sense also. So what is it that we did and what is it that we are doing right now? So we registered a startup. Now this time there were some engineering friends also who came together, because I had told them way back in 2017 itself that you will have to start uh, learning this technology, because I think if you learn this technology, we'll be able to work together in a single domain. And the problem itself, the way it was explained, seemed very intriguing. So this is how we were explained. Mr. Vilas Shinde sir showed us some receipts of real farmers. Now these are small landholding farmers who work in isolation, and just look at how much little amount of money that they are getting. The encircled part, like minus 500, minus 5, minus 4 rupees, and so on. All of this simply because the small landholding Indian farmers of India. Now whatever I'm explaining to you is nothing has come out of my own mind. This is how the farmer collective has explained the problem to me. And I simply, since 2.5 years, I do not have a background in agriculture as well. This is how uh, since 2.5 years I've been deeply immersed in the domain. And now again I'm trying to figure out other social impact domains where blockchain can be used, but agriculture is the spinal cord of Imartech. So the small and holding Indian farmers will be plagued by three major problems: exploitation by middlemen, no market linkage, and no way for them to avail credit and insurance. But this is exactly where farmers were trying to come together. So there is no way for a technology to go to that kind of level, but the farmers themselves were trying to uplift themselves by collectivizing. You could say a way of unionizing. So when farmer collectives started coming together, now they could invest in common storage and processing. Their bargaining power was much up, and there was a protection for market fluctuation. So the idea was, can we focus on farmer collectives, make them more efficient, so that more and more farmers are incentivized to join it? And how would it work? So the problem is, let's say there's a farmer collective. The first problem that they face is pillage and spoilage. Can we help them by solving it by giving them field to fork real time tracking? The second was, can we also make the farmer a important and integral part of the ecosystem, in which they can also see what is happening with their produce after it leaves their field? So it is a kind of a reverse two-way traceability, or you could say 100% transparency. And the third was, can we use this information maybe someday to disburse, to give them credit profiles? Farmers don't have CIBIL scores. CIBIL score is what is primarily used to judge whether you should get a loan or not. They don't have a CIBIL scores because their financial footprint in terms of filing IT returns or owning credit cards or having salary slips is zero. But because of that, they are simply not allowed to go for, let's say, education loan for their children, or personal loan, or housing loan, or car loan, and so on. So maybe we can have that data. And then this is how our product was built. The product is AgroTrust. It's a blockchain platform whose primary purpose is to connect the farmers with the consumers. But of course, it doesn't happen in a direct way. We onboard on one end the farmer collectives, and on the other end any endpoint. It could be a retail store, it could be a food delivery app. Now, just having a start point and an end point doesn't solve things. Now you have to onboard each and every entity on the value chain right on top of it. So it could be a processing unit, wholesale, export, storage, and so on. The beauty of digitizing an entire value chain in agriculture specific to a crop is that you can start adding many services on top of it. For example, you could give certification for pesticides, fertilizers, whether it is really organic or not. You could have a B2B selling platform. And while doing all of this, how do we convey whatever we are doing to the consumers? So this is what we do. So we have printed, it's an old slide. It's not 2 million. It has crossed 5.2 million recently. So we have printed more than 5.2 million unique QR codes that go on each and every food packet of our client, or you could say our partner, say Adri Farms. Each one of those packets will feature three kinds of information based on this QR codes. If you scan these QR codes, it will be there on 30 rupees of methi, 40 rupees of tomato, and so on. If you scan that, you could see on the left hand side a person is scanning a box of grapes. The moment it is scanned on your screen, you will see that who is the farmer. The first information is know your farmer, farmer photographs, details, contacts, name, and everything. The second is know your food. So the entire food journey, if it has any certifications for organic or pesticides, they will also be there. And the third and the most important and radical part, which is less of a technological innovation and more of a farmer centric innovation, because they wanted to do this was they wanted to show the margins, that out of 100 rupees, the 41 rupees is going to the farmer, and we are also trying to show what happens with the rest of the 59 rupees, so that the consumer is aware of exactly how an agriculture value chain works. And we also try to show, if the data is available on the government mandi website, that if the farmer was not working in a collective and just selling it to the government mandi or to middlemen, how much they would be earning in comparison. Because that is the type of awareness that we wanting to achieve. Later on, we realized that the most amount of exploitation happens in cotton, not in fruits and vegetable. And our client has only been working in fruits and vegetables. So the question was, can we do something in cotton? Because the history of cotton is the history of majority of the human slavery, and cotton still continues to be a very difficult, most exploited part. So again, we felt will have to build a cotton, help cotton farmers come together, build an own farmer producer company in which the farmers themselves are the shareholders, and then we just become a vendor to them. So we helped build a farmer producer company, beginning with 137 farmers, and we mapped the entire chain from ginning, spinning, knitting, dyeing fabric, end to end. And at the end point, so this is my team, all of the three of my developers. That's Arib, Sushrut, and Danish right there. We even live in the same flat. We worked the same flat from the same flat in Nashik on the field. So what is it that we do? By collecting all of this information, now we are printing QR codes permanently on T-shirts, and these are the same T-shirts which have gone through the entire journey, beginning from our own farmers. The moment you scan these T-shirts, you can see how much the farmers are earning, how much the artisans are earning, and so on and so forth. Now, the whole purpose of doing this is to raise awareness that instead of building a brand built upon, let's say, the major names Nike, Puma, it's the brand name which gives you money. Maybe we want to create a change in which the transparency itself will create a brand. So this is where we actually even made news. These are some of the news clippings. And right now, we are trying to figure out how blockchain can also create impact in similar domains. For example, in the circular economy, or you could say the green economy, in e-waste recycling, plastic recycling, paper recycling, solar energy, how blockchain or creating tokens to run a transparent economy can actually end up doing something. So that's where, in fact, we find ourselves at. So success is still much far away if we want to go by the formal definition of success. But the beauty is that now we have a great team, and without that great team, nothing would be possible. Even experimenting a new idea becomes a limitation. So the largest takeaway from everything was, uh, not to presume something, but to go out and ask, and to focus as much as possible on the team building, finding the right people together, because right ideas will come and go. It's hardly ever about ideas. It's mostly about who you are working with, so that when things go wrong, or let's say lockdown hits, pandemic hits, when simply you have to change things, you should have someone with you. All the team should be such that they are equally capable and eager to join ahead and transform things. So that's where we are right now, and let's see how the journey proceeds. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to go ahead.
Any questions?
Hello, sir. So
Hello.
I have one question for you. As you have mentioned that there were some failures, I just want to know how you handled it. What was the stress you had that time? How much of effort it took from your side to correct the mistakes?
So the thing is, nothing happens on your own, and the only thing which was creating any kind of difference was that there was a team that was also sharing that stress. So burden is something that is can only be handled if it is shared. If you want to take the entire burden of investors, of development, of funds, all upon one single head, then that's simply how things explode. So that was one part. The other was to always constantly try and think that what else, if not this then what else. So the best idea is fail fast and fail more often, because the faster you are failing, the it ensures that you are quickly doing a trial and error of ideas. So you should have a team in which during times of stress you can still work in such a way that you can test out 10 ideas. Okay, this is not working, not lose your mood. And every idea that you are trying to work with, it will require the same amount of energy. So that is the only thing which matters. That doesn't matter what is the amount of stress. If you, when the time comes to perform and deliver, you you simply have to do it on the front foot. You can't play on your back foot, no matter how difficult uh, the pitch gets or the bowling gets. It's always about playing on the front foot.
I also have a question actually. If you, I mean, if Saiden wants to say something else, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So, to my final and last question for you is like, when you came to know that the idea you had in your mind has become a reality, and what was your feeling at that moment? And of course, of your team as well.
So if you see, even right now, I would not say that yes, this is where things are really creating a value, because sometimes when you create a value, it's enough to sustain a team of four people. It's creating value for others. But is it going to, again, so scalability in a startup is the most important question going ahead, and that is where we stand. We have not scaled yet. Scaling is simply means that because it works in one geography for a certain amount of clients, will it also scale to such a level that now we have 10 times the amount of clients? Because then things also change. Because the market itself will show different properties. It's not that it's not a simple multiplier game that will come into the picture. So at every point you of the stage, it's a new game altogether. So you never know whether this is something that I finally arrived, unless you actually are scaling those stages, and you have to change things very drastically at every new scale. So for example, we were working in Nashik, and now we are working from Mumbai. Earlier it was a team of 6, now we are a team of 11. Just by doing a small amount of scaling, we realize there are massive changes. So it's all about ensuring that you get the moment right and try to solve things from moment to moment. But of course, you have a vague idea of the long term. It should not be a very crystal clear long term vision, because crystal clear also means that if things are not proceeding in that direction, you will lose your hope immediately. It should just be a vague and general idea when it comes to the long term. Clarity is needed in the short term only. It's okay not to have clarity in the long term. Frankly, even I don't have it. Yeah.
Okay, sir. But I had last two questions. Like, while you answering this, I came up to this question. Key, as we see future, I know you said that there is no clarity, but somewhere we want to see our business growing. So, what is the last achievement place you say, "Huh, this is what I wanted to achieve, and this is my dream, which came true." Like, what is it, and what do you think? How long it will take for you and your team to get that feel?
So that's when again things will differ from person to person. There's something called, so my co-founder Mr. Aditya, he already had a successful startup. Now he had an idea, he had an opportunity to go into multiple funding rounds, to go into millions and millions. But for him, it was more about working again from things from scratch, building something, and then taking exit at an early stage, so that his mind can always work on new ideas. For some people, it is taking one idea and converting into a startup into an entire corporate. For me, it could be something else altogether, that after I find a certain level of comfort, I may do things which are simply not possible for me to do now, owing given the responsibilities that I have. So, say what you want to achieve will differ from person to person. You could have serial entrepreneurs, you could have Ambanis and Tatas and all. I mean, these are all different types of personalities. But in order to reach there, the journey in the initial stages is very much similar. Unless, of course, you come from a big shot family like the names that I mentioned. But for most of the people like us, The principles will be the same. What do you do after this is an entirely a matter of personality. Maybe after a few years, if I find that yes, now I feel that enough, so I've done enough in technology with social impact, maybe even I can go into writing books, or maybe even generating content for YouTube. It could be anything. But the beauty of doing this and not a corporate job is that at least the option remains open, that you will arrive at a stage where you can explore what it is that you really are in the long term also, because you will also transform, you'll change in this startup journey. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, so I also had a question actually. So because we engage with a lot of students who are from rural areas, and many of them are, first generation learners and so on. How do we provide the right kind of exposure, as teachers, or can we contribute in building that kind of confidence that people can take these kind of initiatives, or what base can we give basically through colleges or as teachers?
Yes. So the best thing is, like, we all come to the table with something, and there's a fine balance between trying to become something that we are not, because we are trying to learn some new skills which are necessary, and there's a difference between trying to be something that we are not. For example, there could be some just misconceptions that you cannot be an entrepreneur unless you speak very good English, or you have some very good international certifications and all. We should just come to maybe Nashik sometime and see how the 15,000 farmers are coming together, building a revenue of 1,000 crores. They don't have much land, like 10 acres or 12 acres. They are small land holding, 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 acres. And now they are doing pretty well. In some cases, the average income that they have exceeds 12 lakhs, and that's non taxable income because it is agriculture. So I also met some innovative people. Like, for one of my partners is Carver Farms, where four people have come together with hardly any background in terms of education, but they are doing great amount of exports of onion and other commodities to the Middle East. And how do they do that? So business skill is something very core. It is a knowledge of how things work, and sometimes you actually have that. It is just that the difference between implementing what we know and forgetting what we know is the confidence. So the first thing I would say is that the confidence should not be dependent upon any external factor, that you will do this and then you will feel confident. The confidence should already come from the fact that we come from places where difficulty and obstacles are in life. So when we talk about stress, when we talk about financial problems, for a startup, this is something like a daily life. So we have to take our strengths from whatever we come from, because if we forget that, we cannot learn new skills in the new game. So the most important thing is that there should not be any inferiority complex of any kind due to any reason whatsoever. The very fact that you're a human being is enough to give you a sense of confidence and a sense of dignity. If that is achieved, then simply venturing out and trying out new ideas, meeting with people, setting up talks, field visits, exposures, understanding the lives, reading the biographies of people like Dr. Varghese Kurian, I Too Had a Dream. All of that is there. So all of those options will always remain open. But in order to grasp things in a clean manner, the most important part is not to have any kind of inferiority complex.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Oh,
Or students, I have shared the link on the chat box. Or kindly fill the form so that you can get the e-certificates.
Teacher, please send the feedback form again because I couldn't see anything in the message box.
okay, we'll be sharing it. So, on behalf of the Institute Innovation Council, I would like to sincerely thank Mr. Gaurav Somvanshi for sharing his journey with us today. Thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time with us in motivating and inspiring our students. I'm sure our students have gained a lot of knowledge how to build and go about in becoming a successful entrepreneur. I would like to thank our principal madam and president of IIC, Professor Punakala Samant, vice principal and IQAD director, Dr. Pravina Kerkar, vice president of IIC, Mr. Devanand Velinkar, and especially the social media coordinator, Asavari Nayak, for organizing this event. I would like to thank Ms. Aditi Shetkar and Vinita Korgaonkar for managing the technical aspects of the webinar and the entire IIC team for the smooth conduct of this event. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all my students for attending this session, and I hope you all must have gained lot of knowledge and inspiration from a resource person. I wish you all the best in future and hope to see you all as great entrepreneurs in your life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mrs. Savri. Yeah.
Thank you, Gaurav, for accepting our invitation. And the talk was really very inspiring. And for those of you who would like to, see view some aspects of the speech again, it is available on YouTube. You can find it on our college page. So thank you all once again for joining. And yes, so we can conclude the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.